In a time of global crises and ethical disorientation, this work offers tools for a more humane future based on reason, compassion, and spiritual insight.
Chronicles of Wisdom, A Path to Humanity, Rudolf Steiner, Life, Work and History of Influence. Chapter 1, Biography. The Genesis of a Humanities Researcher, From Logical Thinking to Spiritual Vision.
The life of Rudolf Steiner, 1861 to 1925, represents a unique phenomenological phenomenon in the intellectual history of the 20th century. It traces the arc from rigorous natural science to mysticism without sacrificing the clarity of logical thought. His biography is not merely a sequence of events, but a conscious path of development that exemplifies the modern struggle for knowledge.
Born in Kraljevic, in present-day Croatia, as the son of a railway official, Steiner grew up in an environment that symbolized the contrast between pristine nature and emerging technology. This polarity shaped his character. During his studies at the Vienna University of Technology, he devoted himself intensively to mathematics, physics, and chemistry. However, in parallel, he sought answers in philosophy to the questions that natural science left unanswered.
A decisive turning point was his work at the Goethe and Schiller Archive in Weimar, 1890 to 1897. Here, Steiner recognized in Johann Wolfgang von Goethe's scientific writings a method that treated the spiritual in nature not as abstract theory, but as observable reality. Steiner postulated that human consciousness was capable of development and that precise clairvoyance was a continuation of the scientific approach. Around the turn of the century, he took the step into the public sphere as an esoteric teacher, initially within the framework of the Theosophical Society, before founding the Anthroposophical Society in 1913. His life was a service to humanity, driven by the ethical imperative not to keep knowledge to oneself, but to make it fruitful for social life.
The true goal of human life is not rest, but the development of the powers that lie dormant in the soul.
Chapter 2, The Philosophical Foundation, The Philosophy of Freedom and Ethical Individualism.
Chronicles of Wisdom.
Before Steiner formulated his esoteric teachings, he laid the epistemological foundation with The Philosophy of Freedom, 1894. This work is crucial for understanding that anthroposophy is not based on faith, but on an expansion of thought.
In this major work, Steiner addresses the question of free will. He argues against the determinism of the natural sciences of his time, which viewed humans as purely a product of heredity and environment. Steiner demonstrates that humans are unfree, as long as they act out of instinct, convention, or authority. Freedom arises only when one's own thinking permeates the motives for action.
This leads to the concept of ethical individualism. Moral laws are not dictated from the outside, by religion or state, but must be created anew by the individual in every situation. This requires moral imagination, the ability to translate moral intuitions into concrete actions. True ethics is thus a creative act born of the love of action. A free person does not act morally because they must, but because, through their insight, they embrace the moral necessity.
Living in love for action and letting live in understanding the will of others is the fundamental principle of free people.
Chapter 3, Theosophy and Anthroposophy, The Spiritual Science of the Nature of Man and Destiny.
Chronicles of Wisdom.
Anthroposophy, Wisdom of Man, expands the philosophical perspective to include a spiritual cosmology. In his work, Theosophy, 1904, Steiner systematizes knowledge about the invisible aspects of human existence and integrates concepts such as reincarnation and karma into a modern, Western context.
Steiner's study differentiates the human being into a complex structure that goes beyond the duality of body and mind. The physical body, subject to chemical and physical laws, mineral kingdom. The etheric body, life body, carrier of growth forces, health and memory, plant kingdom. The astral body, sensory body, bearer of pleasure, pain, instinct and desire, animal kingdom. The self, the imperishable core of being that makes a person a self-confident individual, human realm.
Closely connected to this understanding of human nature is the doctrine of reincarnation and karma. Steiner describes karma not as a fatalistic fate, but as a law of spiritual balance. Actions we take in one life produce effects that we must harmonize in a later life. This imbues life with a profound moral responsibility. Suffering and joy are not accidents, but tasks chosen by the I for its own perfection. This perspective fosters equanimity and resilience in the face of life's vicissitudes.
Every human being is a thought of God, and their task is to realize this thought in freedom.
Chapter 4, The Social Threefolding, A Blueprint for a Healthy Social Order.
After the collapse of the old order following the First World War, Steiner presented his concept of the threefold social order as a radical redesign of the social organism. He diagnosed the crisis of modernity as a conflation of economic, legal, and spiritual life.
Steiner's study compares the social organism to the human organism, nervous system, rhythmic system, metabolic system. A healthy society requires the autonomy of three spheres. The free intellectual life encompasses education, art, religion, and science. Here, the principle of freedom must prevail. The state must not dictate what is taught or researched, and the economy must not compromise culture through funding. Only in freedom can individual abilities develop that will later benefit society.
Democratic legal life. It regulates the relationships between adults. The principle of equality applies here. Every person has the same rights, regardless of their abilities or possession.
The associative economic life encompasses production, circulation, and consumption. Here, fraternity, not competition, should prevail. Steiner proposed associations, unions of producers, traders, and consumers who jointly determine needs and set prices that enable a dignified life for all. This approach is a direct counter-proposal to both capitalist egoism and state socialism, and places human dignity at its center.
Only when the whole community is reflected in the mirror of the human soul, and the individual soul's strength lives within the community, is healing. Chronicles of Wisdom.
Chapter 5, Waldorf. Education for Freedom Through Humane Development.
Perhaps the best-known practical result of anthroposophy is Waldorf education, founded in 1919. It is not merely a methodology for imparting knowledge, but an art of education, based on Steiner's anthropological insights.
First 7-year period, 0 to 7 years, until the permanent teeth change, the child is entirely a sensory organ. It learns through imitation and example. The environment must be morally sound and meaningfully designed, as the child absorbs these impressions down to the level of its physical constitution. Intellectual learning is avoided so as not to disrupt the vital developmental forces.
Second 7-year period, 7 to 14 years until puberty. With the change of baby teeth, new emotional strengths awaken. The child seeks a natural, beloved authority figure. Learning occurs through images, rhythm, and art. Memory is developed, but abstract judgment is still held back. Beauty takes center stage.
Third 7-year period, 14 to 21 years, with puberty, independent judgment awakens. Abstract, scientific thinking is now fostered. Young people search for truth and ideals. The goal is the development of inner autonomy and the capacity for sound judgment.
The question should not be, what does man need to maintain this or that existing social order, but rather, what is inherent in man, and what can be developed in him. Chronicles of Wisdom.
Chapter 6, The Legacy, Agriculture and Medicine. Healing for Earth and Man.
In the last years of his life, Steiner extended his focus to the care of nature and the human body. Biodynamic agriculture and anthroposophical medicine are attempts to reconnect matter with spirit.
In his agricultural course, 1924, Steiner laid the foundations for Demeter agriculture. He viewed the farm as a living organism that should be largely self-sufficient. Through special preparations, made from herbs, minerals, and animal manure, and by observing cosmic rhythms, the vitality of the soil and plants is strengthened. It is an ethical form of agriculture that focuses not on exploitation, but on healing the earth.
In parallel, he developed anthroposophical medicine, with the physician Itter Wegman. It does not reject conventional medicine, but rather expands upon it. Illness is not only understood as a defect, but often as an imbalance of the human being's essential elements, or as a necessary developmental process. Therapies such as eurythmy-therapy, rhythmic massage, and potentized remedies, such as mistletoe preparations in cancer therapy, aim to stimulate the patient's self-healing powers and restore harmony between body, soul, and spirit. Healing only occurs when a person learns to resonate in harmony with the rhythms of nature and the cosmos.
Epilogue, The Relevance to the Present. Rudolf Steiner's work is monumental, an attempt to break down the division of the modern world overcome. His teachings call on people to take responsibility for the independent thinking, for the social community, and for nature. Rudolf Steiner's work is a monumental attempt to overcome the divisions of the modern world. His teachings call upon humanity to take responsibility for its own thinking, for the social community, and for nature. In a time of global crises and ethical disorientation, his work offers tools for a more humane future, based on reason, compassion, and spiritual insight.
Chronicles of Wisdom. Rudolf Steiner, 1861 to 1925. Life, Work and History of Influence. A video directed and produced by www.mitlove.de.